Alright guys, so what's going on? Coming back after a pretty upsetting weekend. We were doing so good, and then we had the DNF up towards the very end of the race with the engine failure in Sector 1. But nothing too bad to really worry about, as we have spent some R&D points for stuff like that. So we have some durability parts coming in, as well as chassis and aero. And then after some of these parts are going to be coming in, we're going to try to hope for some engine power components that we can try to save up for. But we're sitting at 1.7, and we're sitting in a pretty decent spot right now. We're going to save our money as best as we can and try to go for R&D points. That way we can put some more upgrades in the car for this season, and probably get up there in 4th ahead of McLaren for the performance comparison. But yeah, the MGU-H most likely pushed the car a little bit too much on the track, causing it to overheat and for that component to go out on us. And just another recap here, very unfortunate for our teammate of Daniel Ticktum, as he ended up spinning out in just before the first half of the race ended, and knocking him out of the points. So yeah, very unfortunate. So we had a DNF, and he finished in 15th there. And yeah, we both had chances for points, and we both kind of fell out. But nothing but looking forward to things for the rest of the season here, as we're looking at the scores here. RedBull, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes rounding out the top 4 teams, and other points going towards Renault and AlfaTauri. So Audi Motorsports from Joe Granu, right outside the points, as we have a lot of work to do. So we're going to go ahead and knock out practice and get right to the race for qualifying. Alright, before we get to the race, I do want to apologize once again. We're back on this screen because our qualifying video footage did the same thing as the last episode, so I don't know what it is. There is something in the end screen of qualifying that is causing my OBS to freeze up, and when I hit stop record, the system basically freezes up, crashes, and then I have to delete that video file from my video folder in order for it to just fix itself. Because, like I said before, I put that video file into my editing software, and the editing software crashed because that recording is still technically going on behind the scenes, even though my recording system wasn't even open. So once again, I do apologize that I don't have the footage from qualifying, but a recap of qualifying: we ran a double set of softs during the first qualifying, and we unfortunately knocked out our teammate, and Darren Ticktum is starting in P17. And then we ran for a double lap run on a single set of softs to try to save a soft tire set for the race, just in case we do go into Q3. But unfortunately, we get knocked down to P12. So we're going to be knocked down to P12 for the start between the two Haases of Schumacher and Magnussen, or Hulkenberg. This is a brain fart. Schumacher and Magnussen, I was right. So yeah, we'll be starting between the Haases for the race. And one thing I do want to let you guys know is that if it happens again next race, then our next episode, then we'll just have to recap qualifying. I can tell you guys right now, I am not cheating. I can go into the settings here. My racing line is off. I only use it for practice, so I can get used to the track. And then my difficulty is set per track, and it's AI difficulty 65 for this track. It's a little bit lower because those windy turns are a lot harder for me, especially with how the track is and how fast the cars turn, and my reaction time is not the best. So yeah. And the difficulty level is not staying the same for throughout the entire season. It is being adjusted. I go into each time trial for each track and use the F1 calculator for each track to estimate my difficulty level off of like a 5-lap session, and I average those out for a average difficulty to use. So we'll see how we do in this race, and let's get right to it.
We're here today on the shores of the Red Sea in the Lower Hejaz Mountains to visit one of the newest circuits on the Formula One calendar. We're in Jeddah, home to what we all hope is going to be a thrilling Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So let's take a look at the topographical map of the Jeddah Street Circuit. As you can see, a number of challenging corners for the drivers to master here. We'll see just how much the teams have benefited from their time spent in practice this weekend. And like many street circuits, this track has the potential to punish drivers that get it wrong. Let's hope we avoid any safety cars today. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Sainz, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Russell, Norris, Ricciardo, Joe, and Sebastian Vettel, Magnussen, Johnson, Mick Schumacher, and Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda, Daniel Ticktum, and Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Bottas, Latifi, and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. And it's an absolute pleasure to be joined once more by Anthony Davidson. Can we talk about Mercedes? We've had a significant regulation change for this season, but from what we can gather at this early stage, it seems they've had some trouble adapting their car.
It doesn't look promising for them so far. And if the new regs have hit them as hard as we think, well, I suspect they may need a few late nights at the factory to get back on track.
Alright, so unfortunately we did not make it into Q3, but that does give us the opportunity to use our softs, which we will. So we're going to go ahead and go with our default strategy here instead of the personalized 2-stop, and see how we can do here. Let's go in and see lap 9 maximum wear. They're wanting us to run all the way to lap 9. So 86% wear on these softs, and then running the rest of the race on mediums. So I am willing to take that risk for this race and kind of redemption to get those points back. So risk it for the biscuit. So let's get right to it.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
Alright, here we are all lined up with our 5 red lights, starting at P12 between Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher now. As off to a pretty good start here. Sebastian Vettel moving off to the side, Kevin Magnussen keeping us on the inside as we try to take a few positions here, but no avail, except for Alex Albon and Kevin Magnussen, as Joe Granu still holds that position ahead of us. Kevin Magnussen had a little bit more momentum through that last corner, as these turns that I was talking about before the race, a lot to get used to, and it should have been a lot easier for me on these soft tires, but it was a challenge. This race was definitely a challenge as we're coming around the one end of the track, closing in on Kevin Magnussen here, as we try to make a move, but not quite enough space to make a move, as Sector 2 has a DRS zone. I don't quite remember if there was one in F121, but there is one over here. And you can see those twists and turns here. We're now about a second, just under a second behind Kevin Magnussen, as a lot of time can be lost in those corners, as we're coming back to the end of the first lap. And some nice surprise, Daniel Ticktum and Nicholas Latifi ended up in the back. I don't know what happened to Latifi necessarily. I don't think he was made any positions, but moving on to Daniel Ticktum and see what happened to him at the start of the race, to see why he went into the pits here, as he's trying to take positions on the outside like everyone else, as he's next to the AlfaTauri. And these next few turns, he's taking them a little bit easier than we had, as we were on the opposite side. And you can see a little bit of part going there. You could see the front wing on our teammate had taken off, as gonna swap over to the onboard here as he moves up to the Haas and hits the back of the Haas, causing him to lose part of that front wing. So, moving on to lap 4, we are in a fight between Kevin Magnussen and Sebastian Vettel for the top 10. Trying to find a little bit of room here, going a little bit wide, not getting a warning or anything there, luckily, as we make a risky move on the inside of Kevin Magnussen. A little bit of contact on the tires, and really a risky move there, as he could have gotten stuck in our side pods, as we now try to move on Sebastian Vettel. And a little bit of a scrape over the wall there. We try to get Sebastian Vettel, try to make him nervous here as we move on the outside of him, on the left side of him, and we do capitalize on that position now, moving into P10 in the points, as we are trying to catch up to Joe Granu as we round out the end of lap 4. Moving on to lap 6, a little bit of comment of Nicholas Latifi earlier, but lap 6, he's going to have a engine failure here as the smoke goes up, and not really causing any interference on the track, as he is in last place. But this part of the track, there's not really anywhere he can go, so he does pull off to the side as best as he can, and pulling out a full-fledged safety car in this this early in the race. So coming in for our pit, and I knew that the medium tires would not last the rest of this race, so we're going to be opting to the hard tires, as we can see some of the other front runners coming in for their hard tires early as well. And a couple of the other runners, front runners you'll see here in the lineup for the restart, elected to stay out on the mediums for a couple laps. They elected to stay out till their original pit time, or their pit window. So, and a little bit of a surprise here, Oscar Piastri getting a 5-second penalty for ignoring the yellow flag in that sector, and having to come in later on and serve that penalty. So We'll see what we can do against Piastri here later on if we do end up having to fight for a position against him. As you can see the lineup here: Verstappen, Russell, Sainz, Norris, Guanyu Zhou. A lot of them in the front with their medium tires still, as everybody else comes in for their pits. We can see if we can see how many of them have medium tires, as the McLaren has tires, and I believe the Haas still has mediums, and then the Haas there has mediums, the Audi has mediums, and you can see, and Aston Martin also has mediums as well. So
safety car in this lap, safety car in this lap. Let's make sure those tyres are up to temperature, and remember, there's no overtaking until the timing line. Stay in position until the green flags.
You can see Stroll and Bottas there with their mediums in 13th and 14th, and we get a little bit caught off guard because I forgot where the line was, as you can see Vettel move on the right side, try to make a position on us as we hold the inside line, try to make a position on Valtteri Bottas, but we have to hold our line and try not to go off track and come in contact with anyone. But the current fight is between myself, Bottas, and Stroll on lap 10, as trying to put some tire wear into these hards and trying to find our groove here on the new set of tires, as we didn't run the hard tires since practice 1, and yeah, so trying to get up in the gearbox of Valtteri Bottas, trying to get in position here, as there's a fight between Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo up ahead. And Sebastian Vettel still hanging on behind us about a half second as we try to fight for this position. And you can see we're holding on about a half second behind Valtteri Bottas, give or take some time, as we try to make our way through these corners. And no DRS yet, as we're coming out of the safety car. You can see Sebastian Vettel trying to make a move on the outside. You can see him in the mirror there on the bottom right, as we give him the room, but we hold our line as best as we can, trying to catch up to Valtteri Bottas now, just over half a second, trying to make up that ground. Moving on to the next lap here, actually, as we're on board with Daniel Ticktum. He's trying to fight for position behind us with Sebastian Vettel and Pierre Gasly. He makes a position on Pierre Gasly, or at least attempts to, as he's fighting for a position there on the back of the grid. And he's coming up to one of these corners. You can't quite hear it yet in the engine, but he does back off a little bit. And Daniel Ticktum, our teammate, is also another driver on this track to have a engine failure. So Nicholas Latifi out early, Dan Ticktum out after the safety car, as we're coming up to halfway through the race here. And that definitely doesn't help us for points, as we are currently sitting in P15 trying to get up and stopping in the same place, I believe, as Nicholas Latifi. Moving on to lap 12, where we are at. Lance Stroll, Valtteri Bottas still fighting for a position, as we finally caught up to them. Sebastian Vettel behind me, still trying to put a fight up, as we trying to find some spaces. We come in contact with a wall. We push Valtteri Bottas over, as Lance Stroll gains a little bit of ground, giving us some room to take that position up into P14. And we're going to try to stay as close as we can to Lance Stroll to try to take a position from him. We actually get a warning for going over too far on the track, as we're kind of leading the midfield pack here, trying to get up towards challenging for points. And we actually do kind of catch up to Lance Stroll through these corners. We had a good run through these corners a little bit earlier. That was able to let us get up to Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel. But this time, our main focus is trying to get up to the top 10 and fight for points, because we were fighting for points plenty last season. And we wanted to make sure that people knew that we were here for the challenge and worthy of scoring points and possibly podiums for this season. So Losing a little bit of ground there through those corners against Lance Stroll, but this last few corners we do make up that time with the late brakes. And I believe at this time we did have DRS, so we opened DRS on Lance Stroll, and he actually goes into the pits. A lot of people actually go into the pits, so it turns out the front runners go into the pits at the end of lap 12, lap 13. And that actually puts us up into P6 behind Oscar Piastri ahead of Sebastian Vettel, as you can still see him in the mirror a little bit there. And we are in the points at this point, just under halfway through this race. And now we got to try to catch up to Oscar Piastri, Daniel Ricciardo for a chance at a podium. So we are feeling very comfortable in this race right now. Sitting in P6 and got a little bit of a leeway between ourselves and Sebastian Vettel. Moving on as we catch up to Oscar Piastri and Daniel Ricciardo. Oscar Piastri actually elects to take his 5-second penalty pit stop, moving us into P5, which is a free position here. As you can see some grid changes here. Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc fighting for a position. But lap 17, we finally catch up to Daniel Ricciardo to try to fight for a position here. And it's a three-way fight for podium between Ricciardo, Leclerc, and Hamilton. Sergio Perez about 8.3 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the Red Bull. As we're closing towards the end of this race, and our lifespan of our hard tires, a lot of us up here in the front have to kind of combat the hard tires as we go a little bit wide there. Getting another warning here actually for going over the track limits, but no time penalties. And lap 17 to lap 19, we're still trying to keep as close as we can to Daniel Ricciardo. Coming up towards the end of the lap, we finally find an opportunity close enough to Daniel Ricciardo to cut on the inside, just barely missing any tire contact as we take that position against Daniel Ricciardo. And now we got to try to fight for a position against Charles Leclerc, as he is fighting currently with Lewis Hamilton for P2. And this perfectly what we needed here right now is last 5 to 6 laps, and Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton fighting for a position, putting more wear into their tires, and gives me a chance to catch up as we are coming up right to the gearbox of Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc makes a position on him, and trying to stay as close as we can through these curves through sector 1. And Daniel Ricciardo still closing in behind us as well. Moving on to lap 23, we actually are able to take this DRS, and we are able to stay in the tail of Lewis Hamilton. And Daniel Ricciardo also has that in mind as well, as we make the same move that we did on Daniel Ricciardo a couple laps ago on Lewis Hamilton on the inside. Now if only we could make it up to Charles Leclerc's position for a possible P2. We are currently sitting in P3 podium right now with 2 laps to go. Lewis Hamilton trying to make a move on the inside as he backs off when we close that opening for him, as we're trying to keep up with Charles Leclerc. And now finally, the final sector of the final lap, we try to close up to Charles Leclerc, and not quite enough room here as we finish out the race in P3 just behind Leclerc and ahead of Lewis Hamilton for our first podium with Unity Motorsports.
Let's have a quick look at how the driver's standings have changed. A result that will make Sergio Perez happy as he pushes his championship lead out even further. Some amazing talent out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
I'll probably go for Pierre Gasly. The team did a good job with the strategy to put him in amongst the pack, but it's the driver's job to capitalise on those opportunities, and he did so with a lot of skill.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. And pulling further ahead in the standings, it's Red Bull. Meanwhile, good work from the owner-drivers team this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One.
All right. No cutscene there at the podium. We did get P3 off of a very tough battle. And I'm going to be doing some work when it comes to my OBS, try to figure out why it's doing that, because I record the beginning of the race, and then I record the end of the race, and then I record the replay in its entirety. So P3 for myself, DNF going towards our teammate Daniel Tickton, which was unfortunate. He was running pretty good. And the pit stops, they're about halfway through the race. All those front runners on the mediums, when that yellow flag came out, decided to stay out. And that really changed it for everyone, because you see Pierre Gasly, P19 in top 8. And yeah. So not much else to say other than it was a good, tough race here in Saudi Arabia, as we managed to get some points on the board. So we will see you guys in the next episode after we get this OBS stuff figured out. So we'll see you guys later.